Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. Are you looking to better your financial situation by increasing your cash flow? Too busy to hunt for real estate deals or don't know where to start? Then you're in the right spot. Join us as we dive in and talk about investing for cash flow using multifamily real estate.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Project Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Furos with Tri-City Equity Group. Today we have on the show Daniel Kong. Daniel is an active real estate investor who quickly scaled his portfolio using creative strategies along with the BRRRR method. And it's not just somebody's cold, right? It's the BRRRR method. He's an avid learner and enjoys coffee and talking anything real estate. Daniel's primary focus is building a passive income rental portfolio through fix and flips and utilizing the BRRRR method. So Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate us. Getting that offer to jump on here.
Yeah, absolutely. No, glad to have you on the show. Excited to talk a little bit about kind of your investment strategy and the different things that you've got going on. So yeah, glad to have you on.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So, so for our audience that may not know you or kind of the things that you've got working, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started in your journey into real estate.
Yeah, sure. I think I got started like a lot of other guys where I read the magical purple book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. About 3 years ago, I knew absolutely nothing about real estate or investing or anything. Just always pretty financially responsible, but never really understanding what investing can do for you. And so I picked up the magical book and I read it and it blew my mind. And from there, I was just kind of gung ho. I read probably a book, 3 books a week. I was just consuming podcasts, just trying to educate myself and just learning. And I was just really hungry in the beginning, just trying to get started. And the whole goal was the passive income and getting to quit your W-2 and kind of replace it with either rental properties or stocks or whatever it would take. And so, that first year was a lot of fun. Just kind of learning through podcasts or books and everything, and just kind of started to build using the BRRRR strategy when I first started.
Nice. Yeah. What would you say is your why for, working towards building passive income and, why go through all the trouble, right? There's got to be some kind of underlying driving factor as to, why put in all this effort. I know you mentioned it's fun, but you did also say that was the first year. So I'm sure you've had some bumps and some bruises along the way, but what's your driving kind of motivating factor?
I think that the thing that was really attractive to me was just the freedom of time. Just the ability to to have do what I want when I want. And I had a relatively freedom because I was a software developer and I could kind of make my own hours and kind of dictate my own schedule. But just the thought that you can live your life and survive without actually having to go to a job, to me that was kind of it kind of blew my mind of just what was possible, And so I didn't even consider that in my future. I think that was possible before I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. But after that, I was like, hey, it seems like it's something that I could tangible or something you could actually accomplish, And so the fun fact, I actually quit my job 1 month ago. So finally reached passive income to kind of replace my W-2 and got some other fun stuff going on. But yeah, just took 3 years, but just kind of getting after it for the last 3 years to finally replace my W-2 income.
Super sweet, man. Congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you hear that, guys. You hear that, all to all of your listeners. Like Daniel, just by getting aggressive, taking some action, 3 years, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be, until you're, 65 or whatever. How long away that is. If you do it right, you play your cards right, take the right action, and the right level of action, right? Like that. And we live in a very expensive market. Daniel and I are both here in Hawaii, but this can be done anywhere, right? That's the beautiful thing about real estate. Especially if you're in America. We have some international listeners as well, but just getting after it, kind of taking that red pill, right? That's Rich Dad Poor Dad, opening your eyes to to the possibilities, right? Mm-hmm. Just because you don't know what you don't know, right? So that's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So what made you decide to go into, let's say, the route that you took? Obviously, this is the one thing I love about real estate. There's a million different ways, to make money in real estate, right? And just being an active investor, I'm sure that you've seen multiple ways outside of what you're doing, right? We invest in different things, but what made you decide to go after the strategies that you're using and just kind of hammer those?
I think when I first started, I had like a pretty good W-2, pretty good income, no debt, good credit score, but I had like no savings or no money. Like maybe I had like 20 grand in the bank account. And so like literally in Hawaii, as you know, houses here, I think our median price point of single family homes just hit like $1 million. And so it's a very expensive market. And so when I got started, I didn't think it was possible to play in this market just because I thought, hey, I had to like save like 20% or I had to have like some money or some cash, etc. And so I just kind of discounted Hawaii as a possible like exit opportunity. In addition to the most on average Hawaii properties don't cash flow. And when I say that, I mean like with a mortgage on top of it, you know. And so there's that magical number, the 1% rule or the price to rent ratio, where the rent of the property versus what your mortgage is on average. Like you really want your rent to go a lot more than your mortgage in order for you to build that passive income, right? And so just looking in Hawaii, it seemed like the exit for BRRRR seemed pretty much impossible. So like my conclusion that I came to was I had to do all this out of state. And so after a lot of research, I'm a software developer, so I did some nerdy things, you know, like I scraped like 100 like websites and stuff and like aggregated data for like the different kind of cash flowing markets, et cetera. And so after some research, some economic research and some like just like word of mouth things, I actually ended up in Indianapolis. So my first year, I just focused on trying to do BRRRRs in Indianapolis. And so just looking through like the Bigger Pockets forums, trying to get a wholesalers list, just trying to find some deals in Indianapolis. I just thought like, okay, like Hawaii isn't possible because of the price point, but Indianapolis, you can buy a house for let's say $50,000, fix it up, and then it'll rent for like $1,000, and it'll be like Airview would be like 120 or something. And so it just seemed like more tangible or like available for me given my like limited like amount of funds.
Yeah. So like a key takeaway there, and, you know, we've heard this from other guests on our show, but it's just like, you know, because one of the things that I've learned about being, you know, investing in real estate is, okay, like there's challenges, right? So there's going to be things that come up. All right. So what's the solution to the challenge, right? Because, you know, we get paid, you know, people get paid whenever you're solving problems. So, right. So the problem is faced to yourself there. Okay, well, all right, how do I get started in real estate? Well, it's super expensive to invest in Hawaii. And this would hold true for, you know, a bunch of other very expensive markets, right? New York City, you know, San Francisco, you know, there's a lot of different markets out there that are really high priced. Okay, well, what do you do if it doesn't make sense in your market? I mean, there's people that can, but that wasn't a reality for you. Okay, what do we do, right? Well, we just say, no, screw it. You know, I guess I can't invest in, right? Like, it's like, no, the payoff is going to come being able to retire in 3 or leave your job, you know, in 3 years because, hey, you know what? Went out and found a solution for that problem. So for you, that was going to a different, less expensive market. I like to kind of reiterate that for a lot of people because I run across a lot of people and they don't feel comfortable with that. I can't touch it. You know, I can't see it. It's not in my backyard. You know, then I can't do that. That's too scary. You know, and I'm like, what kind of advice would you have this, you know, people who think that, because I'm sure you've come across that too. I mean, you talk to a lot of local people as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, how many thousands of miles away is that? That's like 4,000 miles or some odd, you know, 333. I don't remember the exact mileage count, but I know that it's over 3,000 miles away.
I mean, it's definitely like very kind of, I think when you're first starting, especially it's scary to get started out of state. And I think one of the things that helped me was I read David Greene's book, The Long Distance Real Estate Investing, which really kind of give you like a lot of like insight and strategies on like how you can do it from afar. But another thing that's been like, that people don't realize how lucky they are today is just like the invention of the internet and what we have available to us like online and just like just the way we're connected in, like on the virtual world compared to what we were like even like 5 years ago. And so like just things like, let's say like you wanted to find a contractor or you want to get involved or like no matter what you do, you have to have boots in the ground in some form or fashion, right? So like you can't virtually flip without actually having a guy there, but the way that you find your boots on the ground, there's so many creative ways or ways you can like double check to make sure that the people you're working with are good or they're doing your job, you know? And so for like, it's just a matter of if you're willing to put in the work to call a bunch of places, Google people, you can like cyber stalk them to see like how trustworthy they are, you know? I mean, call like referrals, like talk to other people, say like, what do you think about so-and-so? How has the work been for you? You know, and having other investors invested in your project over there to walk the actual project for you and take pictures. There's so many like different ways available now. I think that the outside investing is so much more attainable just because the advent of the internet and just a need for people to like myself to invest out of my market into some more of a cash flowing like state. And so it's definitely possible. It's like, it is a lot of work in different ways where like I can't just drive to the project, but it also saves me time because all my projects in Hawaii, I want to drive to them because I can drive to them, you know? And so in the out-of-state ones, you're forced to like utilize a team, forced to like not do the labor yourself. But then at the same time, it's a lot of like building relationships and double checking and making sure that your interests are kind of aligned with the people who you're working with, you know?
Yeah. And then that's the thing too, right? Like that kind of, there's a few different things there. I mean, for one, I feel like a lot of times people like me, I'm a pretty hands-on guy. It's just the way I grew up. And the like I would want to be able to touch like the projects, but when you like that, when we buy at a distance, that's not always a possibility, and that's actually a good thing, right? Because that forces you. All right, well, how do I solve that problem? I'm not there. Okay, great. Then I need to build a team, right? We need to contact people who are on the ground, and I don't need to respond to every issue that comes up on site or at a project. And long term, I think that's actually healthier, right? Like, because, I feel like a lot of times like mom and pop operators, right? Mom and pop landlords, like that's the biggest gripe that you hear, right? Like tenants, toilets, right? And termites, right? It's like, whatever. It's like, all right, well, but yeah. So what if you don't have to deal with, the toilets? What if you got somebody on the ground that's going to do that, right? Like, what do there's different solutions. So that's awesome. And then go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and does that, and I know personally because I've seen it, but that obviously opens the door for you to be able to do stuff here, right? Because you've also worked on projects here locally. I know because I've seen them, but you had to get started somewhere else.
I think it was really scary when I first started because like a lot of people had like zero real estate or like construction background, so just trying to like get up there, like, what do I need to fix the house up? Like, I don't know the first thing about like fixing up a house, but so just kind of like getting to like, I'm just doing a lot of reading. And then as we're going through these first rehabs and everything, like I'm just reading the scope of works and like, I have like no clue what any of these things means, but just kind of going through the process a few times and kind of doing some of the BRRRRs out of state. It just like, it was kind of like you don't know what you don't know until like you actually are doing it, And so just kind of going through the process a bunch of times and doing some like rehabs from out of state. It was such a great learning experience for me to just pick up the different kinds of things that need to be done. And so I felt like after I got a bunch of kind of BRRRRs out of state under my belt, I was a little bit more like confident. Like I learned more things like hard money or private money or these different things that I wasn't aware of in the beginning. And then I thought, hey, like Hawaii is a terrible market for buy and hold for cash flow on average. But it's a great market for flipping because the price points are so high, right? So because the price points are so high, your margin / profit has to be a lot higher in order to match that too. So for, let's say, a flip in Indy, like an average flip, you might get, let's say, like 20 to 40 grand in profit in Indy because the price points you're playing with is like 200 or 300,000 when you sell it in the back end. But in Hawaii, if you're going to sell it for $1 million plus, you need like $100,000 spread just to manage your risk in case, let's say, the market drops or your rehab goes high, et cetera. And so for the same amount of quote unquote like work, your ROI and your time is a lot better in Hawaii if you're trying to do flipping than if you're trying to do it in Indianapolis. And so my thought was, I love the out of state cash flow. Let's keep this train rolling on the BRRRRs, but it would be fun if I had some additional income to kind of throw at that machine. So I thought, hey, let's try hit the Hawaii market and do some flipping over here to try and fund that BRRRR like machine that I kind of had going in Indianapolis, So that's kind of how I tried to transition into the Hawaii market.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how long ago did you sign that? So 3 years it's taken you to get to the point where you can step away from your W-2. How long did it take you to transition from like, all right, well, I've gotten enough under my belt, let's say in Indy and out of state, to be able to feel confident or to have the resources too, right? To be able to come back into like your home market. How long was that transition?
So I spent 1 year in Indianapolis doing BRRRRs in Indy. And then after 1 year, that's when I kind of started to like turn my eyes towards the Hawaii market and try and see what I could do here. And the whole time that I was building in Indy, I was networking in Hawaii, getting around other people who were kind of doing it. And that's like really helpful. And the one thing I hear like over and over is that people in Hawaii are like so helpful. Like, and so like I hear other things maybe like in California or like in New York where it's a little bit more dog eat dog or cutthroat, but like my experience in Hawaii has been like all of my quote unquote competitors are trying to help me succeed. You know, like they're giving their time. They want to see like they want to help me out when I have questions, or they want to help me out when I need like resources. And it's such an amazing kind of community to kind of be a part of, you know, and that I feel like they really helped me to like elevate or to get things faster just because of the people around who are just so genuine and so like willing to give. Guys like you, Steve, like, you know, like you, Duke, and Vince. I mean, like I learned so much from you guys, and you guys are honestly just like there's no competition. Everybody's just trying to help each other. You know, I love that vibe in Hawaii. So
yeah, no, that's awesome. And actually, this is something that I've noticed being able to do the podcast, right? Like, because we get a chance to you know, to interview and to talk with people all over the place. You know, and the cool thing is like I feel like typically the more, so you would think that this is a little counterintuitive, but it's like, oh, the more successful people are, yeah, there's constraints on their time, like because they've got things going on, right? They're out taking action, but they're also very willing to share. I've been actually really surprised at that over the last couple of years now that we've been recording the Cashflow project. Like people who are doing well, like they want to surround themselves with other people who are successful and are taking action and doing things, and they themselves are doing well. And like you get to glean from all of that, right? Mm-hmm. Like you get to take away gems from all of that, and they're usually very, very willing to share, very willing to help. But yeah, no, you're right. Like it's like the people who are, because I think probably know that, well, it's a small community. Not everybody here is doing stuff, you know, like most people are scared to do anything. So yeah, no, I want to, you know, talk and network with those people who are actually out there. They're in the field, you know, they're in the trenches kind of, you know, taking some action. So no, that's cool.
I think one of the things when I transitioned to the Hawaii market was that it was such a different, I guess, the challenges were different. So in Indianapolis, there's cash flow and there's like deals galore where there's like wholesalers. Like every day in my inbox, I wake up and there's like 10 deals waiting for me to just analyze and figure out. You just got to pick which one that you want, you know? And then versus Hawaii is like, there are no deals. I mean, like there's no real true wholesalers in Hawaii. And there's just basically like the challenge in Indy is just managing your contractor and your rehab from afar. The challenge in Hawaii is just trying to find a deal. And so along with like other things, obviously, but I think the biggest thing in Hawaii is just trying to find good deals, you know? And so when I moved to the Hawaii market, it basically forced me to become like a marketer. So like in Hawaii, like we do just our own marketing to try and find some of our fix and flips or for like our deals. And so just a lot of time and energy I spent on the acquisition side versus just like the actual like project like management or project running side of things. So
yeah, no, for sure. I mean, and we've had some conversation about that too, right? Like having spent time as a wholesaler in a different market, like, oh yeah, there was typically no shortage of opportunities in like major metros or like stuff on the mainland. And I feel like that too, like some part of that here specifically is because we're on an island, literally. But too, everybody knows that their property is worth something here, just because it's so in your face, right? Like with the local media and all that kind of stuff. But same thing, right? There's always, okay, well, what's the challenge? There's no inventory. Okay, well, how do we overcome that challenge? Well, we got to take like that. We got to take some marketing into our own hands. We got to go out and try to find some deals. Got to get creative. There's other people that are doing this successfully in this market and other markets that are similar. How can I do it? Right. So, well, you got any cool projects that you're working on now that you can share with us, or like, no, I flipped all the houses. There's no more available.
There's a ton. I mean, there's a ton of opportunities still. Even though it's hard to find deals, there is still like a ton of opportunity. I think one of the biggest projects I did in Hawaii that kind of catapulted me to the financial freedom was a BRRRR that I did over in Kalihi. So we did like a lot of different marketing. We do like texting, cold calling, direct mail, like internet things. And I think this one was an internet lead. And then so the seller like reached out to us saying like, hey, I have I wanted to sell my house, right? And they were going into pre-foreclosure. And so we reached out to them. We kind of tried to see what we could do to help them out. And like, there's a lot of different kinds of like factors that are kind of going on with the house, where one of them is like it was like half built. So it was like there was an existing house, but there was an addition that was half built. And so like the house would not qualify for conventional financing, right? So it would have to be a cash buyer who would come in and take it. And so he was also talking to some other realtors and investors. And I just recently learned about this thing called subject to, where you could buy a house and leave the mortgage in the owner's name and take away the mortgage of that owner without actually taking over the mortgage of the owner. And so and honestly, it's like a brilliant and like very powerful strategy if you do it right. There's a lot of nuances and things that you kind of have to be aware of and watch out for, like this thing called like the due on sale clause or some other things working with the banks and etc. But I mean, the bottom line came down to we were able to offer him like more options, So at a cash price, we would have to pay him this amount. But if we were to take it over subject to, we don't have to worry about lending costs. There's a whole bunch of other things. And so we could offer him like a little bit higher price. And the plan was to hold it in his name for like a little while and then to actually either to fix and flip it or to refinance it into like a BRRRR, So that was kind of like the main strategy for this particular project.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, seeing this kind of comes back to like that, right? That there's so many different ways like to make money in real estate, to find opportunity. And again, it's just like that, learning how to do sub twos. It's another tool in the tool belt.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned it there, right? Like the being able to offer a seller a different solution, right? Because it's all solution finding, right? They have a problem. Problem is they can't pay their mortgage or they need to move on from their property. All right, well, how do you do that? Well, most typically people, okay, well, I just got to buy it. All right, well, maybe that's not the best option. What other kind of options do we have? Right. Yeah. And so like learning these alternate strategies, that's the beauty of real estate. And then, like that, like you're able to structure some win-win scenarios, right? Like you're able to get like this, let's say you're able to get the seller maybe more money than, a traditional flipper would have been able to. Does that secure you the deal? Right. Versus, hey, I'm competing. Yeah. You know what? You're the 10th person to call me today who saw my property because it looks beat up and it looks run down or whatever. They found me on a tax record. Yeah. No, I got it. No, I can't accept that. That's too low. Right. And it's like, but what if we can do this?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and now maybe
exactly what you're saying, like they're just offering different options, and so typically when we go talk to like a homeowner, we kind of usually present 3 options. There's usually hey, like this is like one option is like just listed on the market. This is kind of what you can expect, and so for various reasons, sometimes like honestly, like 95% of the sellers we talk to, like selling with a realtor is like their best option. And so if we can, we always want to push them to a realtor. We always want to push them to like someone we know that like will do them justice or do a good job. But that's always like the first option, yeah. And then the second option is usually like a cash offer, which is like, hey, this is the easy button. It's fast. It's gonna be less money because we need to buy a certain price. We've got to borrow the money to do the job, etc. And there's like more risk for us. And so that's usually like the second option, like the least amount. And then the third option is usually like a creative option. And the cool thing about real estate is there are rules, but there are no rules. Like, like there's certain kind of rules that or things you have to do, but then basically anything else that you can kind of come up like out of the box within using those guidelines is you can kind of creatively structure like however that you want. And so that's the kind of like a cool thing that we did for this project. And so what we did was we offered the exact same like 3 kind of options to the seller, but then the creative offer just kind of stood out the most because it really like solved his problem. And so to kind of give you a little backstory, he had a lot of stuff inside the house. It was unfinished, right? And he needed a little bit of time to kind of get his life together, right? So if we were to go with a realtor route, basically you sell the house on the market, listed for like let's say a month, whatever. After you sell, then a cash buyer is going to come in and then the seller is going to have to vacate at the end of that time, right? Similar with a cash offer is once we purchase a cash, usually they would have to vacate it relatively quickly just because we're paying interest on that money. We kind of need to get the project rolling, etc. But by buying a subject to is we're only paying his mortgage now, which is a very small amount. And we're actually paying down our equity or down debt to like increase our equity. So it's really like a wash as far as paying the mortgage, right? And then, so in this particular deal, the way we structured it was that it was a hybrid of some subject to and some owner financing, where that we would pay him the chunk of what we owe him and then refinance the subject to mortgage in 12 months, whether we flip it or we refinance it ourselves, And so during that time, we were actually going to let the owner stay in the property while he figured out where he was going to move next, or he need to purchase another house or find a rental or something. It gave him like what he needed, like the extra 6 months to 12 months to kind of figure out his life. At the same time, we could give him the most money and still the numbers kind of work for us.
Yeah, so, no, I love that. I love that. And like that, just like you're saying, like you're being able to provide extra solutions, right? Because like that, like a lot of times you're going to run it like any kind of distressed property. Like it's not just distressed property. It's a lot of times it's distressed situations, right? Like, I mean, I can't tell you how many times, like in my, prior life, running into or doing wholesale for residential real estate. I mean, you hear every story under the book. Like, I mean, it's just like, and it's hard because like, these are people's lives. It's not just property. But yeah, they need some additional help to try and get to a better place, right? It's not always their fault necessarily as to, all right. And especially throughout COVID, right? Oh, I lost my job. Yeah. Oh, I don't have, unemployment ran out. Oh, I got a divorce because of COVID. Oh, somebody got sick. You passed away.
This is right in the middle of COVID too. So it was kind of like a little bit scary for us. And so when we purchased the property, our ARV was kind of conservative because the world was basically falling apart at that point in time, right? Like nobody kind of knew what was going to happen. It was kind of like housing prices are going to drop. We didn't know what to do. So we had to everybody was kind of conservative on their numbers as far as like during this time, right? And so what we had to do is we had to take kind of or think of like a lower ARV as far as what we think we thought we could get for it. But then so when we purchased the deal, that's kind of how we ran our numbers. But during COVID, it's just been like we've been so lucky in Hawaii. There's been like so much appreciation these past 2 years that actually after like the end of the refinance came up or the end of the project came up, like our ARV kind of jumped up like 200 grand just because of like the appreciation or the things of what we kind of projected like on the front end, and so like it's part of it was like a little bit of creative strategy, but part of it just like pure luck, like just like a lot of the deals we're running into where we're buying like decent or good deals, but then COVID or like the appreciation and the demand in Hawaii is turning them into great deals just because we're kind of riding that like appreciation wave. It's been kind of like a little insane but very, very lucky run over the past like 2 years here in Hawaii.
Well, that's the thing though, right? Like I can't remember the exact saying, but it's like luck goes to the prepared, right? Or like I don't remember if that's right, but sounds good. You wouldn't have been in that situation if you weren't going out and doing stuff, like taking action, right? Like nobody's ever going to be able to time the market. You want to keep tabs on what's going on, of course, but like that, like if you're sitting on the sidelines thinking, oh, and even now, right? Like and this happens anytime. And I've heard this, like, I mean, I've been starting real estate probably 15 years ago. And like, there's always people like, well, no, I'm just going to wait for the crash. I'm not saying that the crashes don't happen, but if you're just sitting around waiting on the sidelines all that time, you're going to be missing out on so many opportunities. You're not going to know what to do when the crash happens. Like you just got to be out there, like jumping in, getting your hands dirty. And like that, like you will fall into some like that advantageous situations, but you'll be in a better situation to do something with it should that happen, so yeah, it's like you just got to get out there and start taking, start making moves, right? Start talking to people, don't be scared.
100% agree. And I think like if you're kind of like run things conservatively and like so assume the worst but then hope for the best, then like even if the market did crash, we would have still been okay just because we ran kind of conservatively, and so like as long as you kind of are conservative in your numbers and you kind of like are able to withstand different things that could happen, then even like in a if the market were to crash or like a different kind of market, you can always find opportunities or find like things that would like that can make you money or cash flow or equity. And so
yeah, and I don't know, like I know all of our listeners and everybody who's keyed into like let's say our podcast and like other ones, right? Like Bigger Pockets and different ones, like they're working on trying to get themselves better. Like one thing that's going to be key and like right now throughout this time, throughout COVID is, man, all this money printing, like they just released the data recently, right, about all the inflation numbers. You guys have to be sitting on hard assets. Like there's no way around it. Like the longer that you wait, you cannot time the market. Like you will get priced out of this market. I see it every day. Like I hear it like obviously here locally, like I do property inspection. So, I mean, I talk to 40, 50 buyers every month. And it's like, I can't tell you how many times like the story is like, oh, gosh, we just kept waiting. We kept waiting. And then like that, like how you were on the benefiting end of that price appreciation, like they're like, well, but the prices just kept getting more and more expensive. And it's like, well, I can't buy a house anymore, but I can buy a condo. Okay, great. That's a good way to look at it because it's not as good, like necessarily. maybe that's not their first choice, we'll say, but get in. Like you, the coming amount of inflation that we'll have is just going to be pretty crazy. So yeah, you guys gotta get into hard assets. Just speaking a little bit about COVID, and we'll kind of start to transition here after that. But it's like how obviously you were on the receiving end of a great benefit there, right? Because of the market changes and all that kind of stuff, market dynamic. Has COVID affected like your business in any other ways? Or like I know you've heard different stories from different things, but you're actively working on projects and all of that. So I know you would see it kind of firsthand too.
You know, I mean, when it first hit, it was like really scary. Like I think it was March or whatever. I was actually about to like close on a deal, like a fix and flip over here in Hawaii. And so we had like, I was using hard money. We had the doc sign. I signed all the documents. It was like on Friday, we're supposed to fund, I think on Saturday to get the deal, like, and like basically get the project rolling, right? Then Saturday they call and says like, sorry, we're canceling the funding, and then like the whole world shut down. And so like for that little period of time, we were scrambling to try and get money for that funding for that project and everything. And that was like a little like so much like uncertainty. I want to say like in March, April, maybe even a little bit to May. But right after that, then like the market just started doing this like insane like climb up. And so I've seen it in my projects. I've seen it in some of my friends' projects where we were like, hey, like this project will make us, let's say, like 80 grand in this deal, assuming like the market stays flat. Then after like 6 months, like, oh, now we're making like 180 because like it's such a like insane amount of just demand, and it's kind of like a combination of massive appreciation, and then because we're putting out a good product, the supply is so small because our products are like neatly flipped homes, right? So they're pretty and nice. Now we're in this bidding war where all these people are emotionally attached and they're paying like 100 grand over asking or something ridiculous amount just because of like the low supply, and nothing to do with like our skill or our ability. It's just that luck is just giving you that extra kind of boost inside of your business, you know? So honestly, this past 2 years have been like just super lucky for me and actually all my other friends who are like flipping here in Hawaii too. So just like, yeah, just super, super lucky and super, super like blessed to like take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, I think anybody who's been, working to try and acquire and all that kind of stuff this last stretch has benefited from it. Like, yeah. And like I said, you'll benefit from it years from now too. The nice thing is for you too, right? Like you're actively working to hold on to stuff too, which is great. I mean, you're benefiting in the short term, right? With the flip stuff, realizing those gains and be able to go roll them into something else that's maybe a little bit more long term. So yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I knew too, like having seen this, my second market cycle being in real estate, like I knew like right from the get-go when this happened, like, okay, like this is going to be painful for a stretch, but there's an opportunity here for a lot of people. Like, fortunes are going to be made during this time. And so it was just a matter of like, all right, like how can you identify opportunities? How can we be aggressive during this time? Yeah, that's exactly what we've done. And not surprisingly, we've been pretty lucky too, right? So like, yeah. So like I said, what is it? Oh, fortune favors the bold. That's a good one. Yeah. But there's one with luck, and it's going to come to me later.
It's like there's something like luck. I mean, opportunity or success is when luck, something preparation meets opportunity or something.
Yeah, there you go. Very cool. Well, what's so now that you hit the big time, you're retired, from the W-2, like, what's kind of the next stop? Like what, I know you're going to continue to obviously to work on more flips. You've got more time on your hands. What's what's the next stop for you? Is this it? Is it like, what? No, I love doing this. I'm just going to flip into, I'm 80 and just start flipping yachts or something.
It's kind of funny when I first started the journey of financial freedom, like my goal, I had like a number, like let's make 10 grand a month and like not have to worry about my life anymore, right? But like, as I'm hitting that number now, it's like, it's so much fun doing it and I enjoy it. And like, I feel like I realize that like, I can't ever like retire. Like, like I know some people are like, hey, I just want to sit on the beach with my Mai Tai, just kind of hang out and cruise. But what I realize about myself is that I have to be improving, I have to grow, I have to be pushing. And so it's funny that like, basically when you hit like the goals that you kind of set out for, now it's just like your goal just like moves ahead forward, And so, but it's just a like cool process to just be able to like, I feel like the more opportunities than not, as I kind of like expand, like there's so much more opportunities for me to like give to, like, so like get to like help other people as well. And I can be more generous with my money or my time too, just because like I have like more available to me, So that's also like another kind of fun aspect of it. But then at the same time, it's like, now that I see like how like much opportunity is out here in this kind of space, I'm like, let's go after it and let's have some more fun and do some more, you know? So continuing to fix and flip in Hawaii. And I just launched like a new kind of business with a partner doing some whole like nationwide wholesaling stuff. And so we're just like, hey, let's just figure out there's so much opportunity. Let's take advantage of this like golden age in America right now. You know, it just feels like, and so just basically just let's keep on going, just like kind of see where it takes us. Eventually, I wanted to get into just throwing my money into passive syndications, kind of like what you guys kind of offer. And I see that when I was first starting, I was like, why would anybody just like give their money to like a syndicator when they can make so much more themselves, you know? But at a certain point where you're successful enough, you're like, I don't want to have to deal with all like the stuff that comes up with doing like these big deals. If I can get a good return and just place it with like an operator that I trust, this is so much more worth my time. It's such less of a headache. I don't have to do anything. As long as I trust that I'm going to get a good return, it's so worth it. And some of the things you guys offer, like cash flow, depreciation, and then like even like equity build at the end, is just so attractive because you're still hitting all those pillars of real estate, but then I'm doing like zero work like to do it, you know. And so like that's what we're kind of looking for in the next chapter, but we're still kind of in growth phase right now, you know. So
yep, no, I totally get that, and you'll hear that too in like a lot of you know, investors who've been in the market for a while, and this would hold true not just in real estate but just in general. You know, people start to develop their nest egg and whatnot, and after a while, it's like that. Like it's about preservation of capital, right? It's not just about growth, although yes, right, because you still get that, but it's about preservation of wealth. It's like, yeah, no, I've worked hard for a number of years. I have developed, you know, some assets, some wealth, and I want to be able to protect that. But that needs to come with a kind of a lower risk profile. And so, you know, but this is
and a lot less work too.
Oh yeah, this is friggin' mailbox money, literally mailbox money. Like, except now we don't have to use mailboxes so much. Like, you know, it's. Venmo just shows up in the account.
Like virtual money, right? It's my virtual mailbox. But I mean, like flipping, BRRRR, like these other wholesaling, it's a lot of work, and it's definitely is a grind. I enjoy it right now, but who knows? I'm guaranteed for sure, like in the future, I won't like want to kind of get after the same kind of level that I am now, you know. And so
you're like, that's not that interesting to that project is not that interesting to me, right? You only want to go after the interesting stuff. Yeah, no, I totally get it. Well, as we kind of transition here to the next segment of our show, we are going to go into the fire round. So, are you ready enough for a couple of quick rapid fire questions?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it.
All right, right on. So, I know you mentioned this book already, but what is the best book that you recommend other than Rich Dad Poor Dad? And I was going to reach on my shelf for not only Rich Dad Poor Dad, but I had the long distance flipping too. But yeah, what's the best book that you recommend outside of Rich Dad Poor Dad?
There's like so many. Like I read so much, and like I enjoy reading. I feel like it's such a big a contributor to my growth, and so it's hard to pick one. But one I think I really liked when I wish I read when I first got started was the BRRRR book by David Greene. He actually didn't write it hadn't written it back then, but I think the BRRRR book is really like, it's really good for just like outlining the different kinds of strategy of the BRRRR and just how powerful that strategy can be. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What's your superpower?
I think my superpower is maybe like building systems, and I think I'm a systems guy. I think I'm naturally like very like analytical and technical, and so like even for like the business that we're launching, like there's a visionary and the innovator, right? I'm more like playing the integrator side, building systems and kind of like processes and using technology to kind of like fund like a lot of like our business and things that I'm doing. So
yeah, you need some of that too, right? Like it's go out and take action, yes, which is great. But then at some point, yeah, you need to, in order to scale, right? In order to do with any type of efficiency, yeah, I need to build systems. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned over your investing career so far?
I think maybe the biggest lesson is that I think like ability that you need as an investor is just being able to like overcome obstacles and figure things out. I think there's like so much in this space where like you're always going to hit walls or run into things where like it seems like you're stuck, you know. And so like but you have to keep on moving forward. You have to keep on like overcoming them and just figuring things out. And sometimes it doesn't have to be you figuring out. Sometimes it can be grab a resource that will help you figure out or solve this problem. But I think like the thing is you're always just solving problems, always trying to figure new things out and just trying to like I guess that's like the biggest thing as far as like what you need to do, I think, in my opinion, to be successful is to keep on overcoming like the obstacles. And it just like the different levels you're at when I was just starting, the obstacles were a lot smaller than they are now, but there's still like every level you get to, there's just different kind of obstacles or problems you're trying to solve, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You hear that ping. That's Daniel getting another house lead right there. It's like, sell me a house.
Oh.
For the busy working professional working towards financial freedom, what advice do you have?
I think it's so different depending on like where you are in your journey in your life. Like, do you have cash? Do you have a good job? Do you have like credit? Do you have bad credit? Like, do you have like a good network? There's like so many different kinds of ways that you can kind of reach financial freedom. But I think like there's no like one way to do it. But I think the biggest thing is just you kind of got to get after it. Like, like I don't think it's possible to reach financial freedom without some hard work. And so I think like you have to like put in the work and the effort in whatever your situation is. And so I think if you're chasing financial freedom, don't think it's going to be easy, because I think like a lot of people, when we show our Instagram or we show like the success stories, it seems easy because maybe that deal was easy or this situation was easy. But then the reality of it is like it's very difficult and it can be a grind at times. So as long as when you're starting out, you realize that I'm gonna have to put in work, maybe even like a year, and I didn't see any like real tangible results. Like just prepare yourself for like the work that's gonna be involved in order to like hit that financial freedom, and so put in that work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. And then so as we wrap up here, people want to reach out to you and get in touch with you. How can they do that? What's the best way to do that?
Maybe Instagram, Daniel Kong 808. It's I'm not a huge like social media guy, but my friends have been trying to push me to get more into it. So like trying to post a little bit more, but like show some of my things. And so just like Instagram or Facebook, Daniel Kong 808.
All right, right on. Well, Daniel, hey, thanks so much for coming on with us today, sharing your morning with us here. I know I got some good takeaways, and really I hope that the audience did as well. But especially at investing at a distance and just going out and taking some action. And again, like Daniel's true testament right here. I mean, literally 3 years it took him to be able to get to retirement, like to get to where, okay, hey, look, he can step away from his W-2, because I know for a lot of people that's not to even think about stepping away from their W-2. How crazy, right? Like, and I'm sure even for you, probably at some point, it's like,
I still can't believe. Yeah, honestly, I still can't believe it. Like, even now I'm like, whoa, like, yeah, I feel like, and all of it is luck too, it's like, but then just, yeah, I feel like super, super lucky. But I mean, it's so possible. I think like this, to leave a takeaway is that like a lot of people might not realize just how possible it is, especially using the right tool. I think like the tool that you use matters, and real estate is such a powerful tool that like anybody can do it, just put in the work.
Awesome. Well, that's a great parting note. So, we'll go ahead and say aloha to you. And again, thanks for jumping on with us. And yeah, thanks so much, Daniel. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve.
What an awesome episode with Daniel Kong. Daniel shared with us a bunch of gems that he's learned, picked up in his way to retiring within inside of 3 years, doing fix and flips, doing BRRRRs. So hopefully you guys were able to take away some gems from that. And the biggest takeaway is that it's totally possible. You just need to go out, take massive action, get around the right people, learn the right systems, learn what actions to take, and then go out and just take them in, massive amounts. Part of it too is just, again, you can't time the market, but, he was able to benefit greatly from the things that are going on in the market the last, since COVID and all of that, it's kind of hit. But again, you can't time the market. And so if you're out there taking action, you'll be in a position to take advantage of situations should they arise, right? Some kind of gray swan, black swan event. It's out of our control, but again, if you're taking the right steps each and every day, you'll be prepared for when those situations arise. So yeah, great episode with Daniel. Glad to have him on. If you're interested in investing with us, go to tricityequity.com. We talk a little bit about the syndications that we offer. And that's, the multifamily, buying different states, different regions around the country. You know what? If flipping in your own backyard or buying in your own backyard for long-term rentals doesn't make sense, maybe you want to consider something larger, something much more passive, hands-off. So you can go to tricityequity.com to learn more, to connect with like-minded investors, join our Facebook group, Honolulu Multifamily and More. So we have local monthly virtual meetups, and then we also do have some in-person meetups as well. If you found value in the podcast, of course, please feel free to share it with somebody that you know. And we would love if you gave us a 5-star review for, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. If you know anybody that might resonate with today's message, of course, please feel free to share the episode with them. And then, of course, I can't help but to continue to talk about our upcoming conference for next year. So we're super, super, super excited about that as well. So I think it'll be a great benefit to you guys to be able to network in person, to meet some like-minded individuals. And if you're just looking to get started, sometimes that's all you need. You need the right contact. You need to surround yourself with people who are cheering you on and saying, hey, yeah, you know what? I've achieved some success. Let me share that knowledge with you. Let's go and achieve success together, on a greater level. So that's the Hawaii Millionaire Mindset Conference. The whole theme is the blueprint, right? So we're going to provide you the blueprint on how you can achieve financial success. So come join top industry, professionals, leaders for motivation, training. That's going to be next year, July 21st to the 24th. So 2022, of course, out at the Four Seasons here in Kolina, out here in Hawaii. So awesome opportunity to be able to get you a nice ride off and come out and learn some additional skills, meet some great people, and go and come and enjoy a beautiful place. So that'll be next summer, July, again, 2022, 21st through the 24th, out at the Four Seasons in Kolina. So you go to millionairemindsetblueprint.com. You can learn more. You can buy your tickets. All right, guys. Well, it's been a pleasure, and we will see you next time. Aloha.